Welcome to Inside Prediction Markets. We got three big things for this week. Henry, you want to start it off? What's your big thing this week?
The first big story in prediction markets for me this week is that the NFL requested that prediction markets stop listing known outcomes or easily manipulated outcomes, including mention markets, attendance markets, and draft picks. Um, it's interesting they called out draft picks because draft picks have historically even been listed on sports books. I think this is a positive story for everybody involved because it dovetails with the kind of conversation we had with Dustin a week ago that common sense regulation and people coming to the table and saying, this is actually what we're not happy about, and let's solve this specific problem is a good way forward for both parties, right? Just general hand wringing about prediction markets doesn't help. And acting as though you're above the law doesn't help. And so to have real conversations about how do we make this work for everybody, I think is good.
Completely agree. I was very pleased to see this. This also kind of makes me think that the NFL was like, we're okay with prediction markets, just don't do it on like ridiculously ludicrous stuff that negatively impacts our thing. Having it on money lines, spreads, totals, that's fine because like it's getting people engaged, it gets them tuned about have economic interest or whatever. And but what is Joe Buck gonna say on an announcement? That leaves the door for very, very bad things, and that they don't wanna put pressure on anyone like that. And, like, God forbid, like, it's like, how do you rig a game? You don't get a player that's worth, like, $100,000,000, you get a ref, or you get, like, a random backup. Like, let's try to avoid that stuff. Very makes a lot of sense. I saw a slight pushback where it's like, "Why don't you just cut the limits down?" Disagree completely. I think just getting rid of the markets is definitely the way forward, and I hope a resolution is able to come out from this easily.
I think if anything, you can see a world where the prediction markets conclude that they kind of declare victory on some of these categories, right? Like we've established that mentions are a thing. And so we no longer have to spam the board with mentions and we can actually pick out the truly noteworthy press conference of the day or whatever it is. And things where it is consequential, like what are we going to talk about the Straiter of Hormuz at the Rose Garden today or whatever it is. Um, so all directionally good. Okay. What was your second big story from
Uh,
the industry this week?
yeah, EK replays. I know you have some very hot takes or interesting takes about this, so I'll leave you the floor for this one.
Do you want to explain what DK replay is?
Yeah, it vaguely understanding. I know our good friend Gauker, Dustin Gauker posted this a whole like victory lapping on this or something, but you they just replay a random MLB game that has occurred in history, and you can bet on it. That's that's all it is, really. I mean, they actually have, like you can bet on old horse racing in some, like, casinos, like, on some kiosks. I know that's a thing. They've done it for sports now, too.
Yeah. The idea here, they tag, categories of pitches and you're basically playing rock, paper, scissors with VIG. But it's an iCasino product, right? The margins on iCasino on these sports books are so much higher than the sports products themselves. Um, and but it's iCasino is not legal in most of the country. And so this is a backdoor, right? It's a product that looks like sports betting on its face, but is really just straight up like skillless gambling. Um, it, you know, it's it's not directly related to prediction markets because it's certainly not a PM product, but we brought it up because DraftKings does have a predictions product, is working on their own internal DCM. And I just don't think it's a good idea to be working in that direction and then also expanding and polluting the waters of your iCasino and sports products, right? Like you just simply have to decide if you are moving towards a more consumer friendly, more regulated framework, or if you are playing games and mincing words with this kind of gross iCasino stuff.
Agree completely, and it goes to show, like, how much sharps or the ability to have adverse selection affects hold and affects these products. Like, why is iCasino like, they hold, like, 30, 40% on parlays. Why is the margin so much better in iCasino? Well, because they don't have to have like traders. They don't have to have all these extra costs about limiting sharps or anything like that. It's the math is known. It's easy. Anyone can do it. One person can run the whole thing, and it's all good. And having adverse selection and having like a fair ecosystem really makes it better for the consumer and better for everyone.
All right, last story of the week. Kalshi files to offer margin trading on their platform with the CFTC. Chris, what do you think about margin trading PMs?
Great for institutions. I look, people hear margin trading, they think of getting your crypto account balances blown up or like all this stuff and like 100x leverage. That's I cannot not imagine that's what's going to happen. Leverage in financial institutions is very, very valuable and very useful. And as you know, people that are probably going to do, we hope, tons of volume in RFQ. I love to see this, and I'm excited for this. This is going to be very helpful. It's going to help with a lot of liquidity and capital requirements, and I think it's going to help the exchanges get more liquid and better prices for the users. To me, this is a very good thing if you can execute it properly, which I imagine they would. It's going to have strict requirements. I imagine, at least, I'm guessing here, to actually get the leverage. Like they're not going to random or allow a random individual with it, but an institution or someone with a lot of capital.
Up next, we have our guest, Jake. Stay tuned.
For our guest today, we have Jake. He was, I believe, an accountant, less than a year ago, and now he is a full-time better/predictor. Thank you, Jake, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
So I think first, want to give a bit of a background on you into how you came into like what were you doing before this, and how did you find a space, and what made you go full time?
In public accounting for 5 years, betting pretty recreationally. Was introduced to gambling Twitter through Circles Off, and made a really good partnership with someone I think you're familiar with, Chris, Gringo on Twitter. We worked together on PPHs. He would send me bets. I would fill them through my personal PPH accounts. And it kind of grew from there. I amassed about 15 or 20 accounts, was filling bets there, and kind of made connections across the space and grew out that paperhead business. Post paperhead, I went to Bet Bash. I met Chris and started doing some live betting with him. And then more recently got into the prediction market space.
What have you been doing in prediction markets, and how has it been different than the paperhead and live betting approach?
Yeah, so paperhead stuff, I'm not originating in quotes, but bets are being sent to me. I provide them liquidity by getting down. There's no thought there. It's get the bet, click the button. With the prediction markets, I started out doing just top-down making, like the super simple stuff, find an ARB to penny, make it there. As of more recently, I've pretty much abandoned that entirely for RFQs.
Then for your RFQ approach, is it still market driven, kind of top down, or are you starting to think about different strategies?
So as of right now, we are top down. As you guys know, like the top down market is getting much more competitive, competing for order flow as people start to bring in a little bit of origination to shade their numbers and steal volume. So we're currently in the, I would say, debate process of how to go from here to get a little bit more bottom up.
You're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
Before we jump too much into that, I want to give a little more color and background of Jake, if you don't mind. Like, what gave you the confidence to quit your job and actually like do this? It's kind of risky. Like, what if we're in the predicting and gambling space, with you personally betting, you don't always win. You could have year or months, or if not a year, of like break even or down. What gave you the confidence to do that?
Yeah, 100%. And like people ask me all the time, like, should I go pro now? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I'm like, I'm not going to give that advice to anyone. I think it's so situationally based. and admittedly, like a lot of it was luck. Like I ran really hot to start, so built up a big bankroll, which was great. And then I had found that, so I was betting like professionally in quotes for 6 months while I was still working in accounting, and it got to the point where I was busy season was uh, conflicting with betting busy season, my accounting busy season, my betting busy season, and it was becoming a drain on my betting how much time I was spending at my real job. Um, and I think you gave me that advice actually over DMs where you were like, if you're making more money betting and you think you can make more by getting out of accounting, like what are you doing? Like that's a dumb decision to stay.
Fair enough. Okay. And then all right, so next switching back to prediction markets and whatnot, you use the we, like who is we in your prediction market journey and whatnot?
Yeah. So I guess backing up a little bit, um, my current partner, I have two partners in the RFQ thing we're doing now. One of them was actually helping me get down on some paperhead accounts, and we got to chatting, and he is a developer, but no involvement in sports. He is like crypto native, and was doing like a little bit of arbitrage between Kalshi and polymarket on non-sporting markets, and was building automations for that. So I was like, that's super interesting. Like I talked him through like kind of what I was doing currently on Kalshi market making. This went on for like a week or two, and I actually listened to the Eggsy podcast on risk takers, and he kind of talked through his process of doing this all top down. And I had previously heard about RFQs on that podcast from Louis's discussion, but I knew that Louis and both of those hosts are bottom up. So it was like, even though they said that like everyone should be doing RFQs, even an idiot could do it. I was like, well, their definition of idiot is different than my definition of idiot. So it was always like in the back of my head, but I was like, I don't have the skills to do that. And then after listening to Eggsy's podcast, I was like, okay, actually, like maybe an idiot could do this. Like we need to take a stab here. So
Wait, are you calling Eggsy an idiot and Louis not an idiot?
no, I think Louis is a very
Oh, they're both idiots.
I think Louis is a very skilled bottom up originator, and that's a skill I don't have. And Eggsy is very obviously very smart as well. But so I called that kid and I was like, hey, like check out this podcast. Like this seems right up your alley. You're doing these automations. Do you think this is something we could do? And he was like, yeah, I don't know anything about betting. You're going to have to talk me through it, but like for sure we can knock this out. So this led to like probably 10 days of back and forth of him building, getting on calls, me kind of talking him through like the process of top down betting and coming to a fair value, which actually was super beneficial for me. Like taking a step back and looking at the market in a different way. I enjoyed it a lot. But we got a fully functional product built out in about 10 days.
What would you say the biggest challenge is? Is it more from his development side of like scraping and getting the correct odds? Like, uh, have you had like improper mappings or anything like that? Like what you flipped odds or like what, or is it coming up with the actual fair value is like making sure the market isn't tricking you or whatnot?
Yeah, I think both. And like it's hard for me to speak on the troubles with development because I truthfully like am not super in that space and don't fully understand it. So I think there were scraping issues in the beginning. We tried to do some stuff ourselves, and then we ended up paying for an odds provider, which sped things up a lot for us. Um, and
Are you
then
using Optic or who are you using?
no, don't
Okay,
want to get into that, but using someone else.
fair enough.
And with the fair value, I think like obviously some hurdles in the beginning. We're getting picked off by shark quoters, and it was a process of like set your limits to 20, $50 and just keep trying things over and over and over again. Like we would get got, like you're sitting there watching the feed come in. We had a Discord bot that would say like this is what it was quoted at, 80 cents. Fair is 82 cents. Check it off of FanDuel, check it up at DraftKings, see if we're in the ballpark. That first week, a lot of times we were nowhere close to the ballpark. So it's like, take it down, figure out where we're going wrong, and go from there. So like a big trial and error process to get that fares down.
How did you manage to collateralize the whole thing? Because this is an expensive endeavor, right? Did you build up a really sizable bankroll from PPH stuff, and is it coming from just money that you made in your real job?
Yeah, I mean, there's money from the real job, and then I did build a pretty sizable bankroll from PPHs, a little bit of the live as well. So it's kind of like taking all the money and pushing it into prediction markets, and also like you get the benefit of, I don't want to say like leverage, but you're betting on credit in PPHs. So like you have the opportunity to put
Yeah.
money in. If you have the proper risk parameters in place, you have the opportunity to put money in to a prediction market, earn value there while you're double betting the same money on credit.
Do you have any technical background yourself?
No.
Obviously a math background, but like in engineering?
I would
No.
say loose math background with accounting there. But no technical background.
Are you vibe coding some of the stuff yourself, or do you entirely rely on your partners to do the building side of things?
He's doing all the building.
He's doing all the building.
This is a very interesting dynamic. I think it's like, you get someone with clear domain knowledge. Like he couldn't do it without you because he would have no direction, but you can't do it without him because you don't know how to. It's very interesting to see that. Do you th- do you think it's like easy to work with someone like that where you have two completely different skill sets, or do you kind of wish you were someone like an Eggsy or Louis where you have this both domain knowledge and engineering skill set, or do you think as long as you got both skill sets, it doesn't matter if it's in one or two or even multiple people?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely in the camp of partnering up with people that have domain knowledge that you don't have. I think across the space in all ways to bet, in paperheads, in prediction markets, like I don't want to be wasting time doing something I'm not good at. It doesn't seem like optimal to me. Um, yeah.
So you talked about you're now at this juncture where you have to decide, are we going to try and do a bottom up approach where we're bringing original pricing into these markets? Um, how do you do the cost benefit analysis on something like that, right? Like, you, because it's easy to say that, but you have to actually source the talent or build it yourself, and you have to price that relative to God knows how many other opportunities are out there. Like, are you just going with your gut, or is there a way that you can kind of weigh the different directions you could go and the resources available to you? Like, how do you, because you run a business now, right? Like it or not, you're operating a small business, and you have to make sure you do these things responsibly. So what does that process look like for you?
Yeah, I'm sure when we get to that actual inflection point, there will be like a true cost benefit analysis, putting pen to paper and getting numbers on it. I do think we're still a little ways away from that, and we're more thinking about how to structure those partnerships. And me and Chris talked about this a little off air, but I think there's two routes where you can do a real partnership, where you provide the tech, the originator provides the numbers, and you're splitting it that way. I think there's another route where you can kind of white label your product, um, give a dashboard to these originators and allow them to kind of set the odds to their liking and charge it more like a subscription fee where you're taking a percentage of profit. And there is someone in the space right now doing that, charging what I would call egregiously high percentages to use their software.
So in that white labeling model, how do how do you deal even with origination? How do you deal with like, or I guess in both models, how do you deal with adverse selection? Obviously, the adverse selection and top down is more like prevalent because you have no fears. Like anything, any bet or trade into you is scary at some level. You don't know truly if it's a wreck or if it's another sharp. And with origination, everyone can have good numbers, but if someone is clicking and jamming into you the same thing over and over and over again in RFQ, like at a certain point, you're like, all right, what's going on? Like, how do you think about that from both sides, whether it's top down, white labeling it, providing a service? Are you auto moving or anything like that? Or what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, someone's always gonna have better numbers, like, you guys being more capitalized than me will probably have access to a better originator. So then I think it comes down to, like, tailoring your limits to the skill level you have at origination, where, like, maybe you guys can take massive overnight bets. Um, we probably can't. So our overnight limits will be a tenth of yours, and I think you can still make money doing that, taking rec flow from small bets of a guy bouncing a three-leg parlay overnight, um, and that avoids, like, a $10,000 sharp taker coming over the top. So I think there's ways to manage it without having to worry too much about the pricing, but that is a major issue.
We talked about how the current system is kind of maker friendly. I say current system, so Kalshi is the most popular RFQ system. A lot more are coming on, but a high taker fee system with exposed information about your counterparty is very protective to a maker overall. Do you think that the exchanges should maintain a maker friendly environment? Obviously, you're biased if you're primarily making. Um, in the name of maximizing liquidity and price availability for recreational users, or do you think everybody will eventually that fees will get driven to zero, similar to what we've seen in straight markets and on order books? Um, where do you think that ends up going?
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, I'm in the camp of keep the IDs. I think most most quoters are, um, and, like, I can see the benefits, right? Like, I bet into legal accounts and, like, getting your account cut sucks. Um, but that breeds creativity and, like, I'm sure that the sharpest takers will find ways around that. I don't think it needs to be free lunch for them to go to town on quoters and eliminate people from the market. But again, like, that's obviously a selfish take because I'm making money off of rec betters, and I'd like to cut every single sharp quota that ever comes across my desk. So we're doing everything we can to do that.
Well, what about so you said talked about offering a service, so like a white label service where originators can come in and post their own prices and whatnot. What about a service where originators can come in and send out taker bots to like to RFQ or something like that? Like, could you not build a service like that and kind of stunt the market, stunt other top down guys to kill competition and boost your own top down situation? That like that's kind of my thing as to why I believe creator IDs should be taken off. And I think Henry and I disagree on this, and clearly you're on Henry's side as well. But that's kind of like my take is like, why not get rid of creator IDs and allow like it really to be about price, like allow originators to battle each other out in the streets and see what's going on.
I think I still disagree, but I see your point, and, like, sure, as a service, you can make money doing that. I think you can make a lot more money quoting recs than taking from quoters.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. Um, so what are your like, okay, high level, what do you think the bigger opportunities are as someone that's, you know, kind of as Henry alluded to or mentioned already, like small business owner, really, you're in the betting space, you're in the prediction market space. What do you think the best opportunity is for you in the next like 12 months? Is it the PPH? Is it like live? Is it the prediction markets? Do you not know? What are you thinking about?
It's a tough question, and, like, I think about it often because I do, like, by definition, I would say I'm a mover. Like, I spend the majority of my time on PPHs, and I do think there's massive opportunity for growth there. Like, we've dumped a ton of resources into our current business, and, we're getting new accounts, like, daily. Um, that's obviously capped, though, and I think profit-wise, in the near-term future, prediction markets are probably the biggest opportunity. And, like, that could change in 2 months, 3 months when institutional money continues to flood in and, like, hold percentage gets smaller, and so who knows? It's really get it while you can, in my opinion.
Totally fair. Um, what and then okay, going back to I kind of agree that prediction markets, at least what it seems like the next couple months, is the biggest opportunity for like someone like yourself, someone like individual with maybe a little limited resources, not like a big institution to earn. What are the next challenges you're working on? Is it strictly RFQ? Why not had you considered, like, making, a moving service on just straight bets? Like, you can build an automated software to auto move and help originators get down, on exchanges that way, or you think doing everything RFQ for you?
Um, I had never thought about a moving service on prediction market. I mean, those 2 aspects of my business never really crossed because my thought is always, like, unless they're a Canadian, like, they can access US prediction markets, like, they don't need me. So, a lot of the time, these guys are sending to me to get down quiet, and then they can do whatever they want, hit the exchange, blow it up. Um, so I don't know if there's a ton of opportunity there. I could see a realm in which, like, there's a service for a dashboard that allows people to easily quote across multiple accounts and, like, get around, some sort of quoter ID limitations, but yeah, I don't think anything on that side. And what was the other part of the question?
Um, are you just like are you more focused on just RFQ, I
Yeah.
guess?
I think our biggest focus right now is figuring out how to expand RFQs beyond just our personal accounts. And personally, I think that that's gonna be a huge opportunity to earn in the space right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. What is the number one problem facing you right now for RFQ? Is it alright, I guess just blanket statement.
I think something so we actually have a third partner that I didn't mention. He is, by day is a risk consultant, focused on CFTC compliance. So what we've been on calls the past few days is talking about the legality of, bringing on others' money, and is that considered are you considered a custodian at that point? Um, how do the taxes for this work? So I think there's a bunch of legal hurdles on top of the infrastructure hurdles of copying our code and now directly competing against ourselves and other accounts. So I would say one is legal structure, and two is finding out how to give every one of your potential customers how to make them happy and give them enough volume. Because if someone isn't an originator and say they are a pro better in the space, but they don't have any tech background and they want to just do top down stuff like you, if you have the same code, have the same fares, like I hook them up, like they're competing with us now.
Let me throw a crazy idea at you that I keep kicking around the office and nobody wants to hear about. I'm interested in your perspective. Um, RFQs thus far, prediction markets use them to offer parlays. What would you think about offering straight markets via RFQ so that people are able to be a little bit more discreet about size, price, etc.? Like obviously the advantage of order books is the transparency and price discovery. But you spoke about people you work with, they want to get down quiet before they get down loud, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think there would be a real marketplace for certain market types to trade RFQ only, um, so that it's all a lot more hand to hand, and only people who are really consuming trade feeds and looking at executions could infer what's going on in the market? Is that something that you think would be interesting?
Yeah, I think it is. Like, so you're saying a spread is -110 both sides. Someone before betting into other places, they price it at plus 100 and take all the volume from the straights.
Well, I'm saying that maybe the market isn't even posted with odds. That it's just it's Lakers money line. You click it, you put a quantity in, you get a spinning wheel for a few seconds, and you get quotes back from everybody saying I would give you this much on Lakers. But you probably wouldn't start with NBA money lines. But you could see, for instance, like NBA player props. A lot of people don't want to go quote those both sides. It's so toxic. And if they have original pricing, they don't want to expose it. But if you said, hey, if you come request something specifically for me, I will send a good for just now quote back, similar to how parlays work.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think that would be super profitable for everyone on the quoting side. Would be a bloodbath for rec bettors sending their straight bets in. Talk about adverse selection. But I think it's interesting.
But what I don't understand is you guys are both like, oh, this is interesting, good idea. Henry's all about it. But get rid of creator IDs. You're like, no, can't do that. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what the logic does not fall through.
My logic path
Y-
is what's best for me right now.
y-
If
all right,
that aligns for you.
that's a
I'll come out and
responsible
say it.
answer.
Well, I think both ideas are getting away from purely free and fair, but at the expense in the service of a possible ecosystem boost. I wonder, a lot of what killed Betfair, for instance, I won't say killed Betfair, it's an operational business, but Betfair suffered under the weight of toxic take inflow, right? And then how do you mitigate that without just taxing the hell out of people so violently that nobody wants to use the product? And it's a tough problem to solve long term. The sports book, in a sense, like the traditional DraftKings FanDuel style sports book, is one proposed solution to this that just like will kick out every winner. I think everybody agrees that solution is no good, but the underlying problem still exists.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I don't know the solution. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, especially as more institutional money comes into the market and it just continues to grow. Like, there's going to be things that pop up and then get shot back down, and it's going to be cool to see how it happens.
Do you think institutional money is coming for sports, or do you think they're more concerned with what prediction markets could be on politics, finance, et cetera, like real news markets?
I think sports, maybe in a sense of like, I don't know. It seems like all the like Kalshi's number one volume is sports. Why would they not come in, reduce the hold, and take all the volume, and just churn fees on a massive portfolio? Like, that seems like the most obvious outcome for me, to me.
Definitely possible.
Definitely. All right. I think wrapping up. Unless you have anything else, Henry, we typically got the last question that I could leave is: what is the most expensive mistake that you've learned?
The face says it all. They're like, yeah.
It's
I
very
think it's too painful a question.
It happened this weekend, actually. So
Oh,
I don't
I'm
know if you guys
sorry.
saw, baseball got rolled out day of opening day, like in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So we're scrambling to get baseball ready to go because we're like, all right, we got to quote all these home run parlays that are going to come in. First day goes great. We have no issues. We get it up and running like 2 hours before the game. We have some limitations in place, like timing based. There's a group that plays MLB in the morning. I wanted to wait until after they kind of move the screen to bet. And we were like, okay, like this should be a fine enough limit to see what kind of action we're getting day one. Turns out we had spreads flipped 1.5.
Yeah.
So
Well, Kalshi changed the way they do the tickers, right?
exactly.
Just kind of silently. Yeah. I mean, puke.
I didn't fully understand it. My developer was telling me that, and he was like, they must have hired a new guy to do this sport. All the old ones were the same way, and this guy did it different. He did it backwards. So we quoted about like before he realized it was about like 60,000 in liability on a 3-game parlay that should have been plus 400, and we gave them like plus 1,300. So now I'm sitting there opening day sweating like these plus 1.5 on some pretty terrible teams. And the Cardinals ended up coming through for us, and we won. So we're like, okay, we're in the clear here. We had like a meeting that night, and we're like, all right, did we fix this? How are we gonna fix this? Thought we fixed it. Next day, the second we start quoting in the morning, fills are flying and flying and flying in. By the time we shut it off, we had about another 60, 70 on totals flipped this time. So we had
I was going to say the totals too were also changed.
and we didn't realize it because so much had gotten quoted on the spreads yesterday, whatever. Someone's gonna DM me and be like, that was me who was getting you. But they got a lot of our volume on the spreads, so we didn't even realize that the totals were off. So now we have some 3-game parlays that are priced at 9.5, but actually 7.5. And of course, all 3 games blow over, and we lose that one. So that was my Sunday.
Yeah.
The lesson learned.
Sorry.
That is unfortunate, but it's funny because, Henry and I have had the same situation happen. We had a total flipped in an NHL, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "What the hell is going on? Why are we getting jammed to this?" You don't know what you see it in the screen, you're like, you don't know what's going on, so you just turn it off. Then you're like, "Oh, what? It looks good." But then when you actually pull the parlay up, you're like, "Oh, the mapping was wrong. It's not right. It's the wrong thing." Very fun lesson to learn. I'm sorry that you had to lose money to learn the lesson, though. Um, it it sounds like you need more like, risk parameters set where it's like if you have the same trade coming in, like, "Okay, turn off the feed." That would be my recommendation to you. That's what we should be doing.
You ever think of that one, Jake?
That was established Sunday night.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it sounds like you learned the lesson Friday night or Saturday night and then didn't do it for the next day. So, feel like it needed to be said again.
Well, like you said, sorry you lost the money, but you learned a lesson. It took us losing the money to learn the lesson. We were a little overconfident Saturday after we escaped.
Fair.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us, Jake. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.